Hey, good afternoon, and welcome once again to my China Adventures podcast. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what is one of my most memorable and just phenomenal times that I had when I was in China. Some years ago, I was involved with, here's the backstory. I was involved with network marketing, and the first year I was one of the top new recruiters slash salespeople in the company. I did that for a year. I switched to another company, and I was an elite distributor. And so I had some success in network marketing, which basically involves sales as well as recruiting other people into the business. Well, one of the Chinese students that we had a mom who was in China, and she was one of the top Mary Kay reps. And so she understood network marketing, and she came here and stayed with us for a week with her daughter one time, and we did a few things together. And she said, what I want you to do is I want you to come and train my top leaders. And as you do that, you can share about the Lord. So, wow, this sounds really fun. So I went to China, and so we gathered and at a very, very nice hotel. Mary Kay really does it nice. Some of the top corporate people were there getting ready for there. In fact, when her team in that area met together, her team had 4,000 people in that auditorium for that meeting. So the first meeting I went and I met with about 40 of her top leaders. And so I'm there, I'm using an interpreter. And I began to share about business, how I got started in business, about the principles of business. And I worked into that message different things about the Lord and about how God led me and just different things like that. And so finally I finished. And they had said, now, when you get done, make sure there's a Q&A because they're going to have questions. So it came time, and I said, so does anybody have a question? One lady raises her hand. She goes, yeah. She said, you mentioned something about God in your talk. And she said, I've been to church twice in my life, and both times that I went there, I really felt like they had a culture of love. She said, so how would I become a Christian? So I very simply, in about 60 seconds, explained how we are separated from God because of our sin. Jesus died for us, and if we believe and receive that, he comes and he lives inside of us, changes our life, and we walk with him forever. And I went right up to her and I prayed with her a sinner's prayer. And as I'm walking back to my podium, she begins to say, oh, I feel such peace. I've never felt such peace before. She said, I feel such peace inside, and so she is declaring this, to all of the other 40. And so I got back, and then, this is not a church service, and I'm in communist China, and what do I do? I said, so are there any questions? One lady raises her hand. She says, yeah, she said, I've been Buddhist all my life. Could I become a Christian? So I went through the same thing, prayed with her, and as I'm walking back to my podium again, she says, I feel like a weight has just rolled off of my shoulders. I feel free, and she's declaring this, and she's so happy, and she's so excited and everything. So I got back and okay, so I'm wondering, okay, how am I doing? Am I really overstepping my bounds? And so I said, does anybody else have any questions? It could be about business or about anything, and one lady says, could I become a Christian? I said, okay, now, I said, let me explain something here. I said, you do not become a Christian because somebody else thinks it's a good idea or because your friend becomes a Christian. You don't do that. I said, but anybody here that the Holy Spirit is drawing can become a Christian. I said, and I just explained it to her. I said, and this is what it feels like if the Holy Spirit is drawing you to become a Christian. I said, now, if anybody else wants to become a Christian, I said, just stand up now and I will pray for you. 100% of those ladies stood up. I said, okay, sit back down. I said, don't stand up because your neighbor stands up. Don't stand up. I said, you have to have the Holy Spirit drawing you and responding to God in that way. So after I explained to them again, I said, okay, now anybody that feels the Holy Spirit drawing you, and you want to give your life to the Lord, and you want the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, you want to confess your sin, and turn from that, and turn to the Lord, and walk in His ways, stand up, and they all stood up. So we prayed for them. I realized I am in a holy moment. This is not something I planned. This is not something that I could set up, but it was absolutely amazing. Then my interpreter turned to me, and he goes, well, how are you going to baptize them? Immediately an idea came, because they were putting me up at this 5-star hotel with this big, deep garden top. And so I announced, tonight at my room, I asked my friend, the Chinese lady, the leader, I said, what's time's good? And so at 7 o'clock that night, we have in my garden tub a baptismal service. And I got a little video here for you to see that. But in that, they came just as they are. We're in nylons and mini skirts and whatever. And we had some towels. We just had an amazing time. And that was a instant. Not planned, at least not planned by me. But when I felt that I was in a special situation, what a privilege to be there. What a privilege to participate in something that God is doing. So that was an amazing adventure that I had in China. God's got more amazing adventures too. I'm looking forward to them in your life and in mine. So be aware. You may not be planning something special. It may seem kind of mundane to you. But when the Holy Spirit shows up, He turns everything into good.